everybody, and welcome to Dinner with Jesus, the Bible podcast that's about the Bible. I'm John Fairless, your host. Our idea is pretty simple here. The Bible is filled with great stories that have carried deep meanings for people for thousands of years. And that's quite literally true. I mean, think about it. Some of these tales are pushing 3,000 years old. Each week we read one of these stories, learn a bit about its background, and take some time to think about what it might mean for us in our time. That's it. And I'm glad you've come along to join us. Our name, Dinner with Jesus, comes from the fact that we've begun with stories that have been told by Jesus, one of the world's great storytellers and wisdom teachers. And it just so happens that he told a lot of his stories around the dinner table while he sat down with all sorts of people. So, voila, Dinner with Jesus. Catchy, huh? In our first episode from Luke chapter 15, we listened to two stories that Jesus told about things that were lost and then found. A shepherd lost a sheep, and a woman lost a valuable coin. And each of them was so joyful after the finding that they invited friends and neighbors over for a party. In this episode, we're going to hear the third story that Jesus told on that day, a much longer story that still follows the same idea. This is the story of the man who had two sons. Our Bible narrator, Jane Trevor, will give us the story, and I'll be back with a few thoughts and some questions to consider. Take it away, Jane.
I'm reading from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, verses 10 through 31. Jesus went on to say, "There was once a man who had two sons. The younger one said to him, 'Father, give me my share of the property now.' So the man divided his property between his two sons. After a few days, the younger son sold his part of the property and left home with the money. He went to a country far away, where he wasted his money in reckless living. He spent everything he had. Then a severe famine spread over that country, and he was left without a thing. So he went to work for one of the citizens of that country, who sent him out to his farm to take care of the pigs. He wished he could fill himself with the bean pods the pigs ate, but no one gave him anything to eat. At last he came to his senses and said, 'All my father's hired workers have more than they can eat, and here I am about to starve. I will get up and go to my father and say, Father, I have sinned against God and against you. I am no longer fit to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired workers.' So he got up and started back to his father. He was still a long way from home when his father saw him. His heart was filled with pity, and he ran, threw his arms around his son, and kissed him. 'Father,' the son said, 'I have sinned against God and against you. I am no longer fit to be called your son.' But the father called to his servants. 'Hurry,' he said. 'Bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and shoes on his feet. Then go and get the prize calf and kill it, and let us celebrate with a feast. For this son of mine was dead, but now he is alive, he was lost, but now he has been found.' And so the feasting began. In the meantime the older son was out in the field. On his way back, when he came close to the house, he heard the music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him, 'What's going on?' 'Your brother has come back home,' the servant answered, 'and your father has killed the prize calf, because he got him back safe and sound.' The older brother was so angry that he would not go into the house, so his father came out and begged him to come in. But he spoke back to his father, 'Look, all these years I have worked for you like a slave, and I have never disobeyed your orders. What have you given me? Not even a goat for me to have a feast with my friends. But this son of yours wasted all your property on prostitutes, and when he comes back home, you kill the prize calf for him.' 'My son,' the father answered, You are always here with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be happy because your brother was dead, but now he is alive. He was lost, but now he has been found.
Wow, what a story of family intrigue and strained relationships. This tale with a papa with two sons is a lot more involved than the first two stories about the sheep and the coin. But we want to try to hear it in the same context in which it was told. It fits right along with the shepherd and his sheep and the woman with her coin. I mentioned last week that this third story is one of the most famous stories in the Bible. It is often known as the story of the prodigal son, and I'll say more about the word prodigal in a moment. Because it's so famous, and the emotions it depicts are so human and true to life, this story often gets pulled out on its own, and can lose its connection to the first two. But that connection is important. It's part of the meaning, and I believe to understanding why Jesus told these stories and what he may have been trying to say. All of the intimate details aside, the third story follows the format of the first two. Something valuable is lost. A significant search ensues. That which is valued is found and recovered, and a great celebration of joy is had. Now, as the master storyteller, Jesus has built our interest and focused our attention as these stories have built. The first story involved 1 out of 100 sheep in the flock. The second story was about 1 coin out of 10 in the woman's house. As our third story begins, we learn that there are 2 sons of this father, and our attention is immediately drawn to the one that appears to be lost, the younger son, who takes his leave and travels to a foreign country. Along with those first listeners, we're anxious to learn about the fate of the lost son. And in our keen interest in that one son, we sometimes fail to realize that there's a second son who, while still at home, is also lost in the swirl of his own emotions. What is a father to do with these 2 boys? Let's think a little further. Son number 1, actually the younger or the second son, gets most of the attention. Let's call him Junior as a sign of his place in the home. Junior is getting antsy down on the farm with his brother and his dad. Now, we don't know if there's a mom in the picture. She's not mentioned. It's possible that she has passed away or is absent for some other reason. But Junior hits his 21st birthday or so and decides that he'd like his dad to settle up with him. "Hey, go ahead and give me my part of the estate, Dad. I'm ready to be a man and get out on my own." And the dad does just that, signing over a portion of the land, which Junior promptly sells, takes the cash, and blows out of there faster than a toupee in a hurricane. He's gone. The quick version is that Junior proceeds to have the time of his life. We can imagine lots of friends, one big party all the time. Our text says he wasted his money in reckless living, which is actually the meaning of the word prodigal. It's a synonym for profligate or reckless. No thought for the consequences of his actions. He is the prodigal son, while the older brother is the proper son, staying at home and working with Dad. The good times roll until all the money is gone, and then so are the friends. his apartment, his fast car, his flashy clothes, all gone. He's left with nothing. Then, to make matters worse, the local economy tanks, there's a shortage of food, and the only job he can get is tending pigs for a local farmer. Do you get the irony? He left home to get away from the farm, only to end up on somebody else's farm, with only a bunch of hogs for companions. Now, he'd have been happy to eat the pig slop, but pigs are not noted for sharing. I mean, come on, they're pigs. So Junior is about as lost can get. And like many a man and woman before him, his life situation causes him to come to his senses. It dawned on him that even the servants in his father's house had better food to eat and better clothes to wear. So he comes up with a plan. And this is where the story takes a really interesting and unexpected turn. Junior says, I will go to my father and say, Oh, Father, I have sinned against God and against you. And then maybe that'll convince him to let me be a servant. I am so dang hungry. Well, he didn't really say that last part, but you know what I mean. Now, just a quick time out here. Most of the sermons I've ever heard view this as a moment of true repentance on Junior's part, which makes the rest of the story a tale of grand reunion and redemption because of the boy's act of confession. But is that actually what happened? Is the focus of the story on the boy who wandered down the wanton highway and came back home a changed man? Notice that the text says, I will get up and go to my father and say, we never really see a moment of actual repentance from dear Junior here. Certainly his older brother, we're going to call him Sonny, he doesn't buy it later when he finds out what's going on. Just something to keep in mind as the story now shifts to the father, who we learn is gazing far into the distance, hoping against hope that his boy might come home today. Sure enough, when he sees Junior's head crest the horizon, the daddy takes off running to meet his son, wraps him in his arms, and smothers him with a kiss. Junior begins his speech, but he's interrupted by the father's commands to the servants. Hurry, bring the best robe, put a ring on his finger and shoes on his feet, and go kill the prize calf. We're having a party. Now why all of these actions? Junior's words were, I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But was that true? Well, not according to Dad. You see, servants wore tunics, sons wore robes. Servants went barefooted, sons wore shoes. Servants owned no identifying jewelry or crests, but sons wore rings bearing the family seal. This boy is being received as a son, and like the shepherd with the sheep and the woman with her coin, the only thing the father wants to do is celebrate that which was lost and has now been found. Evidently, his choice had already been made. If the boy comes home, I will welcome him. He is still my son. And we could end the story right there, couldn't we? What a great ending. A hallmark moment at home. But there's another son to consider. Remember, the story began by saying there was a man who had 2 sons. Sonny has been out in the field, working one of those long days that are a common part of farm life. As he's coming in, he hears music and dancing in the house. He knows it's the middle of the week, and there shouldn't be any special occasion for music and dancing, for heaven's sake. So he calls a servant over and wants to know what's going on. The servant's kind of matter-of-fact. He's probably a bit nervous, speaking to the number 2 man of the house. Your brother has come back home, and your father has killed the prize calf because he got him back safe and sound. And Sonny said, well, ain't that a fine kettle of fish? I'm so happy for Junior. Well, no, of course he didn't say that. He was madder than a wet hen, so angry that he refused to set foot in the house. Can you blame him? From his perspective, this little snot-nose of a brother has disrespected their father, ripped off the family estate, run off and acted the fool, and gotten himself in trouble. And now he comes home, and all is forgotten? What in the flibberty-gibbet is going on? When his dad comes out to see him on the porch, Sonny unloads. I've been here all these years, working my fingers to the bone for you, Dad. I've never once disobeyed your orders. And what have you given me? Not even a goat for me to barbecue with my friends. But now this boy, this son of yours, notice that he couldn't even call him his brother. He trots back in after spending all your money on prostitutes, which, by the way, we don't know that he did. Could it be that Sonny is projecting a little bit here? And you kill the freaking fatted calf for him? Oh, man, that is a lot of stuff that Sonny had to say. Do you think maybe this isn't the first time he's been angry with his little brother or with his dad? And this is when we realize that it is Sonny who's facing a choice here, not the father. The father's mind is already made up. He has forgiven the younger son in advance. But Sonny, all he can see is the anger and the unfairness of the situation, and he's not about to let any of that go. And the story closes with the father's response. Son, everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate because your brother was as good as dead. But now he's alive. He was lost, but now he has been found. And with that, Jesus is finished. He just lets the story hang. We don't know what the older brother decided to do. Now remember that whole crowd of people we read about at the beginning, the tax collectors and the other outcasts, along with the Pharisees and teachers of the law? They are all left hanging too, with their own decisions to make. Who is it that's missing at the table? And who really deserves to be sitting here at the feast? How should the father have acted when his rebellious, conniving son showed back up? And what do you do with a brother who's convinced he's better and more righteous than the kid who tossed it all away? Seems like that's just the way it is when you sit down for dinner with Jesus. Let us know what you think and how you react to this story. Give a comment below, if you will. And Share this podcast with someone you think might enjoy it. Better yet, listen with a few friends and then talk about it together. We'll see you next time on Dinner with Jesus.
Dinner with Jesus is produced in the studios of the Lectionary Lab. Written and performed by John Fairless. Our Bible narration is by Jane Trevor.